بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن.
الحمد لله وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى أهله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. Alhamdulillah. Today we continue the conversation we started the other time about JAPA. And then once again, JAPA is just like a word that we use in Nigeria for expressing this how do we it's actually hard to define it because it can be defined in different ways depending on the context, but we just defined it as a way. I mean, JAPA is just like the process or that act of leaving Nigeria in search for greener pastures. So that's basically how we summarized it the last time. Yeah. So leaving Nigeria in search of greener pastures. So I think those are the two major components of the JAPA. So although, just like we said, so their greener pastures can be very, it can be very relative to some people. Greener pastures is having better education. Some people, greener pastures is having access to better social amenities. And like that. So it can really be, it can be very relative and subjective to whoever is defining it. Yeah, just to quickly summarize some of the things we mentioned last time. Yeah, so we basically said some of the reasons why people are leaving the country. People are searching for a better life. Maybe people want to have more money, and then people are searching for employment. People are looking to get better education. Yeah, and then we also mentioned insecurity in the country. And then I think one very important one that Hassan mentioned was peer pressure. Yeah, which I think is also one of the key things, or one of those things that people don't really pay attention to. And then another thing that Hassan also mentioned is lack of knowledge or half knowledge. So I think what that kind of means is that a lot of people don't really know what is on the other side. So they usually just think that, oh, what we've read a lot of good things on Twitter about this place. But it's not necessarily what you hear that you meet when you get to that place. Yeah. So I think that's also one of those key things that are one of those key reasons people are leaving the country. So another thing that we mentioned that was kind of started is Israel. Yeah, so some people leave the country because they want a place where they can better practice their deen, where they can better have access to knowledge of the deen, and then things like that. Have access to scholars. Yeah, so sometimes people also leave the country because of Hijrah. Yeah, but I think the major reason why this conversation is coming up is not because of Hijrah. I think it's more of the other reasons that we mentioned earlier. So while I was also reading some articles on the web recently after the first conversation, so I saw something on a web page. So it says that the summary of what it said was for every move you make in the country right now, there are several forces making moves against you. So it's almost like it's very difficult to make progress in almost anything you are doing. Yeah. For example, let's say you're trying to start a business. It's almost like there are many forces moving against you. Maybe insecurity, lack of funds, Naira is losing value, and just many things are fighting against you. So that was how they kind of summarized, or someone summarized why people are leaving the country. Yeah. So, and just like we mentioned too, there are many reasons why people are leaving the country. So we can't just say this is the one reason why people are leaving the country. So also, just to summarize this part, we mentioned that some of the things, I mean, as a Muslim, there are some things that we can put in place that would really help, that process, regardless of whatever reason one is leaving the country. There are some things that should really be in place. Yeah. And those things are a solid fundamental knowledge or a solid knowledge of the fundamentals. So when we talk about fundamentals, we're talking about things like Aqidah, things like Tawhid, like Adab, and all those fundamental knowledge of the Deen. Those things are really important. And regardless of whatever other reason one is leaving the country, I think those would really help one thrive as a Muslim, which is very important. Yeah, so now today's conversation, we ended the last conversation by mentioning a particular hadith, and then the hadith. So I think we were going to focus more on the ending of the hadith, which is love of dunya, and I remember the exact wording, love of this world, yeah, and dislike of death. So I can remember that I mentioned that this is kind of like a diagnosis of some of the problems that people are facing when it comes to deciding that I want to leave the country, I'm going to another place. I think some people face this problem that this place I'm going to, will I be able to practice my deen as much as I am able to do it in Nigeria? But nevertheless, it's that usually the deciding factor when a lot of people, take this decision that yes, I'm leaving Nigeria for a bit for another place. Yeah, so I think that's where we want to start today's conversation. So I would like to push a question to all of you, and my question is from your own experience, is Akhira always the goal? Yeah, although it's a nuanced question, there are multiple ways to interpret it. Yeah, but whichever way you want to interpret that question, I would like to know how you, Hassan. Hassan, you can go ahead.
No. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum
So,
salam wa rahmatullah.
like you said, JAPA is the conversation itself is very, very nuanced, very, very subjective, and interesting too, actually, because it didn't start today. People have been JAPAing from the start. Let's be frank. It's just that the context and the reasons why they JAPA now is what is the change, and then maybe the rate too. So with regards to the question that you asked, like, okay, most times when people japa, do they really consider the akhirah? The answer would be yes and no. Yes and no. And why do I say that? For example, I think the first thing that should have always come to the mind of a Muslim would be, okay, whatever we are doing in this life, it is to, it's for that greater good, which we all know, is to seek the rahmah of Allah, enter Jannah. That's literally what should be on every Muslim's mind. Unfortunately, when relating with what the hadith that you spoke about, the fear of death and the, being in love with the dunya, right? Is
Dunya.
one of the, yeah, so it's one of those things that the more those things come into the mind, the more the direction, which is like everything we do for dunya, should always align on that path, and then the more they diverge. So now, at that particular point, anyone that says they want to japa, most likely they are japaing for other reasons. And to be frank, it's not a bad thing. Let's be frank. The problem is that, okay, where they are going, will it not affect their akhirah chances? So, for example, now, and I think this is very, very rampant too, if you think about it. If you ask the average Tom that wants to japa in your class, why is it japa?
Waladu.
Yeah,
Average Waladu.
yeah, well, like just asking. It was most likely because yes, the Nigeria is not safe, or no, all of the things that we've already really listed. Really, we should not really list them. So
yes.
even if that Tom is an Hassan, the average Hassan, most likely will also say that too. So I feel like it is very, very hard to answer that question. And it is one thing that I believe we can only talk about on a very, very abstracted level. Like everyone that wants to jackpot, I'm not saying you're not jackpot, but please always remember that wherever you are going, the deen will not change. The requirements to enter Jannah has always been there, will not change for you. And literally nothing has changed. So your dean should always be on top of your mind. Then, in the light of that fact that the dean is 100% should be number one, what do you do? Should that affect the location that you go? Should that affect the choices that you want to make before you go? Do you want to marry before you go, or do you want to go there and go and marry? You know, yeah, I don't know. Or do you want to go to Czechoslovakia, or do you want to go to Medina, or do you want to, all of those things now? Now start thinking about it. Unfortunately, the way we see it today, a lot of people don't think about those things. It's more around. It's more like flights now. Think later, rather than think now then JAPA. Unfortunately, so I don't know if it's not really an answer. It's just more of my own experience. Like, very hard to answer from one person's perspective. I think it's a JAPA first, think later for most people, but we can only enjoin people to remember that before the JAPA. Thank you.
JAPA first, think later. That's a deep. I think that should be probably the the thumbnail for this video. JAPA first, think later. That's a very nice way to summarize the whole thing. But just like you said, it's really difficult to say that, to say people are not doing it for the sake of Afro, and it's difficult to say people are doing it for the sake of Afro, right? So I think it's really an individual or something. But anyways, let's hear the views from maybe Abdullah or Koya, if maybe Koya can go first.
Now, yeah, I think the first speaker has correctly summarized most of what it really is all about. But I think one thing I would add is the fact that there are things that we should always remember the verse of the Quran that says that, I think it's in Surah Luqman, that no one, there's some things that no one knows about except Allah. And one of it is the last day, the knowledge of the hour, when the what is in the wombs, also what we would earn tomorrow, what each person would earn tomorrow, and then what land they would die. So Allah knows that, of course, He has created the earth so that we can move around, and He has actually permitted it that we should, as long as we always keep to His there is with the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's you traveling outside of the country or you staying wherever you are does not in any way increase or decrease whatever you would earn in future, because only Allah knows that. And also only Allah knows what land we would die. So it's possible, if you are the type that says, okay, I'm always going to be in Nigeria, or I'm always going to be in a particular place, if Allah says, okay, this is not the land you're going to die, there's surely there would be something that would facilitate your traveling to wherever Allah has already destined for you to die in. So it's a very, very subjective matter, as said earlier, but the best intention or the best way to get the best out of it would be to always have the intention to worship Allah through it, whether you're traveling or not, whatever you do, whatever your actions are, just make sure that you're worshiping Allah through it. And that's the only way you know that, okay, you're not going to lose at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, Jazakumullah. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. In the light of what you just said, it reminds me of one thing. I don't know who I was talking to. I think it's Ibrahim, yesterday. And we spoke about the fact that leaving Nigeria foremost, or even Japan in any form, is not it's not an assurance that one is going to make it wherever one goes. Because, for example, if you take, say, the UK or the US as an example, and you move away from Nigeria to the UK and US, say, okay, better work opportunities, yeah, the bulk of people that do, it's not like they become extremely rich, Dangote rich. They just become quite comfortable. So in the end, yes, they are there. They're having all of the money, but it's still there is also this significant change in the standard of living that they have to always match to. So apparently, it's just like you left the location, but you just still okay. So yeah, I think that fact that whatever one will earn in one's life will never elude one is one very important thing that everyone should think about. Maybe to even make one even sort out their priorities and the reasons for Japan even better. Because if you're going to die in Nigeria, you go, you come. There's nothing
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. And I feel like some people just do it because they feel like that's like a sign of being successful.
Yeah, yeah. I think we spoke about that like last week too. Like one of the reasons why people do it is like peer pressure thing, and status thing. Because, and to be frank, it's very, very easy to think like that, especially if you're on Twitter or you're somewhere where every woke person is in the US or every woke person is in the UK and they are talking. And somehow most people when they leave, that is when they start having the what do you call this thing? Like, that's why they start having Nigeria in heart. Like, oh my god, Nigeria, my country. So it
Yes.
seems like from a very far away perspective, most successful people they are they are Japaists. Yeah, unfortunately, I've never Japa before. Don't know how true that is. Which links to the another reason that we stated last week, like knowledge, half knowledge or little or no knowledge about how these people actually live over there, how they survive, what's the climate like, the family ties, the things that we tend to lose by just moving away. A lot of us do not really know how much those things are worth. So
Yeah. Yes. There was a friend of mine that wanted to like move with his family. And then he made findings, and from all the things that they asked him to do, it was like there was no way he was going to give his consent to that, because it was more like the government would be in charge of the children instead
yeah,
of he himself.
in
And
Europe.
yeah, so he he wasn't like comfortable. He was not like comfortable with many of the um with many of the conditions that was attached to e moving with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also one of those things where, yeah, apologies, my internet just failed for like 5 minutes. It's, technical issues. There's really nothing you can do about those things when they happen.
Uh,
Yeah,
how
anyways,
can
how can
how
US
can the
internet fail?
how
Half
can the
knowledge,
internet
half
of a
knowledge,
first world country fail?
half
I'm
knowledge.
literally jackpotting from Nigeria to go there. And
That's
what?
that's also one of the things that we used to think, right? There was one time when I was a little kid, we used to think like white people did not used to fart, and white people did not used to use the bathroom. So I just want to emphasize on that, that half knowledge, sincerely, things that we see online, sometimes one of my friends says something, he's also in the US, he says that sometimes you see some people enjoying life, they have car, they have the latest phones, but some of those people, not all of them, right? But some of those people are actually living on credit. If you read
Yeah,
about like the credit system in the
credit
US,
and
for
all that.
instance, it's crazy. It's just crazy. And you read about some people's experience, you be like, oh my God, this is something else. But when you see their life on Twitter, their life on some people's life, not everybody actually, and you see their life, you see the kind of life they're living, you can, think that, oh yeah, because these guys are doing well financially or something, so that they're actually doing well. So now it's going to go. Now I want to kind of change the conversation that to a different direction. How do we measure success? Or what should, as a Muslim, what should be our metric for success? But before we start answering that, I think Abdullah wants to say something. So let Abdullah go first.
All right, thank you. This is actually like I'm putting you on spots because the
Okay.
first question revolved around why do people Japa? What do they think about? And I think you are the only one that have that experience. So like it will actually be so good because nothing beats experience. Like we can say all we want. But for someone that
Yeah,
has
sure.
actually experienced it, So it will be so good to like learn from your own experience. So why did you travel out? What has it been like? Compare that place with this place. I mean, you don't need to go like too far, and particularly because we are like speaking from Islamic perspective, you probably want to like focus on that. Like, how has it been affected or how has it improved? Then what would you advise for someone, whether when they come, what they should look out for, or if they don't come, what they should look out for? Like, if that's something you want to share, it will be so like, it's like sharing your own experience. Like, it hits more than just like abstract stuff.
True. Yeah, that's very true. So now you've asked a lot of questions. That's really putting me on the spot. So the first question is, why did I decide to JAPA? I don't really think I have a definite answer to that question, because when I finished like undergraduate, and then I did quite well, alhamdulillah. And then it's almost looked like, for someone like me, it looked like the next reasonable step was to probably just go to graduate studies, maybe do a master's, a PhD. And I have to quickly also mention here that when I finished my undergrad, I was actually very confused, extremely confused. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. I didn't even know whether I should, I didn't know whether I wanted to go to the academia or I wanted to go to the industry, or what exactly, or do I want to become an entrepreneur, or do I just want to sit at home and do nothing and just, watch the sunset and the sunrise? So that kind of confusion was there. And the academic part was like an already defined path, right? I had people close to me that were already on that path, people traveling abroad to do masters, people doing PhD. My father is a professor. So it's almost like, it was like a reasonable thing for me to do. And then I tried to find out about some things, but I really couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. So I went on to start my postgraduate. So I actually started a master's in Nigeria. And from there, when things started getting messy in Nigeria, like security issues, and then even, job-wise, I was not really getting that kind of, financial satisfaction. So I think those are, I'm going to say those were maybe some of my motivation to go outside Nigeria to study. So I think, firstly, maybe the security issue. And then secondly, I wasn't really getting as much satisfaction from the program I was doing, and then maybe my job as well. Yeah, it was, I think I used to complain like every other day. Yeah. Although looking back, that shouldn't have been the case for me. Looking back, I feel that shouldn't have been it shouldn't have been something I should complain about every day. And then, those two things. And then also maybe the resources, availability of resources for education in Nigeria. As an engineering person, someone that was very interested and passionate about robotics, I wanted to have access to resources that would, allow me to really develop the relevant skills and experience in that field. And sincerely, Nigeria is not really the place to study a course like that. You can study it, but you wouldn't really get as much experience and then have access to as much resources as you would when you come to a place like this. And then when you come to a place like this, and then you're also funded, that also gives you some additional benefits. So I'm kind of jumping into the benefits of going out of Nigeria to study. So number one benefit is resources. You have access to a lot of resources. Sometimes I even get overwhelmed by the available resources. I can't use all the resources I have access to. And then so resources, the environment is also kind of different. The environment is different in several ways, and then also the academic depth and width is also more here. Depth and width in the sense that I don't really know how to describe that, but in terms of the quality of the education and then the quantity of the education that you get, that doesn't make sense. But I believe you get the point. Let me just use the word quality of education that you get. So over here, you get much better quality of education. Even some of the very low-ranked schools, some of the very low-ranked schools, you still get access to some really great resources and great education resources. I think I've answered all the questions. So maybe the other part of it that you also ask is from a Muslim's perspective. From a Muslim's perspective, I think where I came from before I came here, I think that place was much better in terms of, being able to pray or being able to express your religious stuff, or your religious, I don't want to use the word desires, but express yourself. And then, you are also surrounded by people of like minds, like a lot of Muslims around you. Yeah, I can't really compare that with this place, right? I mean, in terms of if you normalize the number of Muslims around you there to the number of Muslims in the whole population versus this place, I think Nigeria is much better than this place from my experience. Not everywhere in Nigeria, but the places where I was staying before I came here, it was much better. Yeah, so I think that community, and then I don't say the Islam here is different from the Islam in Nigeria, but it's just something that is different about the religious stuff here, and then than the religious stuff here. For example, let me quickly give an example. For example, last semester, I had asked before this semester, last spring of 2022, on Eid day, that was the Eid for Ramadan, right? On that Eid day, I had to write an exam on that day. I had to go to Eid like maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. From there, I had to run to the exam or to write an exam. Although I had the option of postponing the exam, but it just felt weird that the exams were still going on the same day that Eid was going on. When you have stuff like that happening, it's almost like there's not a perfect synchronization between the deen and the other stuff. The system is not really designed for deen. Another challenge I usually have is Juma, right? The Juma is like the Juma time is, we usually have like 2 Juma in school if I want to pray in school. But what I want to say there is that back in Nigeria, in my own school, in OAU, for example, the Juma time was reserved for the old school, that okay, this time nobody should fix any academic activity in this period. This period is for Juma. But yeah, there's really nothing like that. You understand? This place is like strictly academic. They are not really pushing so much of religious stuff into the system. And then I don't know, some people would say it's okay. I mean, it doesn't allow some unnecessary things to go into the system, but well, maybe not necessarily. Yeah, so I think those are some of the things I can say I've had challenges with. Maybe you want to ask more specific question about that. Yeah, so I don't just keep ranting about.
I mean, that was like, thank you. Yeah, that's like an encompassing answer in a way.
Oh, okay. Let me add one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one last thing I would want to add is like maybe the availability of masajid. Yeah, for example, in my own city, I'm one of the, out of all my colleagues or friends or senior colleagues I've talked to in the US, I'm one of the very lucky ones because Minnesota has a very huge Somali population and Ethiopian Somali population. So there are a lot of masajid here. Yeah, even with that, the masjids are still far from my place. So I think it's kind of difficult for me to get to the masjid most of the time. So I usually stay in school, or if I want to pray Jama, I have to stay in school, pray all my Jama before coming home. Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, that's also one thing. That synchronization I mentioned earlier, synchronization between the deen, the way we used to go from White House to go to geology to pray, you meet all the brothers, and it's kind of different from from this part of the world. So yeah, and I think it's also, we can connect it back to what I said earlier, that this society is not really that religious. So if you are trying to be religious, it can be a difficult thing for you. It can be a very difficult thing. And the other thing I want to also mention there is, if you don't have a community you're connected to, it can be difficult to stay motivated a lot of times. And that motivation is very important. Sincerely, you can imagine that somebody's iman is dropping, and all that you have around you is still things that will push your iman down more. Yeah, so you can imagine that kind of environment. So I think in terms of that too, I think that's also something that one might have to deal with. You have to really, I don't want to use the word strong, but you have to strengthen yourself with something, yeah, that would help you thrive and stay afloat and keep your iman intact. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, mashallah, mashallah. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't have like much to say about that. So otherwise, we'll just like extend this too much. I want to ask like, a direct question, and
Okay.
it's okay if you don't want to answer it. It's probably too much at this point. So the direct question is for you, like, do you think it's worth it, or do you think it's just a necessary sacrifice? You know, that's like number one question. And the second question is, at the end of the day, people that want to travel out for one reason or the other. Like you said, you don't,
Yeah.
the kind of course you want to study to pursue something you have planned for future. You can't get that kind of education here for now. Like, or it's not easy to get that kind of education. And it's somewhere else where, I mean, there are some things that you have to like sacrifice to get it over there, right?
Yeah.
If it comes to that, what would be your recommendation to someone willing to do that? I mean, your recommendation might not necessarily be like the sunnah or whatever you get, but
Okay.
it's just best to learn from someone that has the experience. Like you are living to it, and
Oh,
you get my point. So those two
yeah,
questions. The
that's
first one is, do you think it's worth it, right, from your own perspective, and or do you think it's just a necessary sacrifice? You know, and the second, you probably understand what I'm asking. And the second question will be like, someone that has to do that for one reason or the other, what would be the recommendation for them? What would be your advice for them?
Okay, yeah, mashallah. Those are very good questions. So the first question is, do I think it's worth it? I would say not really. I don't really think it's worth it. Yeah. So for me, for someone like me, I don't really think it's worth it because my own main goal as a Muslim, I don't want to use the word as a Muslim, it's going to sound generic, but my own main goal as an individual is to attain Jannah. And to be sincere with you, somebody cannot sugarcoat this thing. Anybody can say anything, right? Anybody can say they want Jannah, they want Jannah, they want Jannah. But not everybody that says they want Jannah works towards Jannah. And I've really realized that the environment you put yourself in really has a lot of impact on how you actually get to that goal. I mean, it can be very difficult. You can strive, you can say you will try, you will be in a community, but on the long run, there are a lot of things, from my own experience, there is really not much you have control over. I think there are many things that have control over you more than you have control over. I'm talking about my own current environments, right? So from that point of view, I think you might end up sacrificing too much, yeah, that you shouldn't sacrifice. Yeah, that's just my feelings from my own little experience. I think you might end up sacrificing too much. And then the too much now is, I mean, it's Allah that decides to enter Jannah. Somebody can still find an excuse that, this is why I'm doing this is why I'm doing this. Allah understands. For how long will someone continue to say that? And you know, the art of Allah is wide, right? I mean, there are other opportunities out there. There are other places where somebody can actually still go to study. So, but I think it's all boils down to a matter of trade-off. So you have to trade off something for another thing. So it's almost like you have to trade off some of your religious or some of your religiosity or spirituality, some of your iman for something else from this world. It's not, it's not that discreet, right? There are some nuances to that, but that's the way I view it. It's kind of like a trade-off you have to do. But if you have to do it, let's say you really want that knowledge, you want that experience, and you want to come over here, what I would recommend in that case is, do a significant research about the location you are going, like the community you are going. Is it a community that has, or that you can find, or is it a place that you can find community, like Muslim community and things like that? If not, I mean, that shouldn't still stop you from going. I mean, because if you go to a community that doesn't really have Muslims, I mean, that's an opportunity for someone to do things like dawah. But now that goes back to the person, like, do you think you're capable based on your spiritual strengths? Do you think you are capable of withstanding those kind of challenges? Because each one of us, we are actually on, every individual, like every Muslim is on a different level entirely in terms of spiritual strength. Yeah, what's a test that would break somebody, break another person? I don't know if people understand, if you guys understand what I'm saying. We are on different levels. Some people are weaker. Maybe some people are weaker when they are alone, and then they are strong when they are in a community. Some people are very strong when they are alone, and then they are weaker when they are in a community. community. So each individual strength pays, and I think each individual needs to be sincere with themselves and say, what is or what could happen to my spirituality if I go to this kind of place? And then, yeah, if one does that assessment, then one really needs to ask those questions and really, if you feel you still want to go, you need to prepare for it, make it all to her and stuff like that. And then the other thing is that I feel anybody that now ends up taking that decision now coming over should probably have it at the back of their mind that they don't want to stay here forever. That's my personal advice. Yeah. They should have it at the back of their mind that they are staying here for some time, they are getting the experience, they are getting the cash. Yeah, it's not bad to get the cash too. The cash is also part of the thing. Yeah, I wouldn't hide. Before they say that, we are saying that people should not have money. That yeah, you're getting the cash, get the cash, get all the fine things, but have it at the back of your mind that at the end of the day, there are still so many things you don't have control over, like I mentioned. And then you need to think about your future, your future of your children, the future of your, and then you also, when you do that kind of migration, you are almost isolating yourself from your family. And I think that also has kind of impact in some ways that a lot of people don't talk about it. A lot of people don't talk about it, but for someone like me, that is, I don't want to call myself a family person. I was not really a family person, but maybe when I came here, I became more familiar. But for someone like me that really wants to be close to family, I think those are things that one really needs to consider. Have like a 5-7 year plan or 8 years plan that, okay, this is the kind of path I want to take. And then this is, by the end of this year, by the end of my 8th year, I want to leave this place. I want to do Ethiopia, or maybe I want to go to Saudi, or maybe I want to go to an Arab country where I will be able to practice my deen better. And then I will also have access to, more deen. I will also have more control over things I want to control. So those are things that I think I would advise somebody. Although I also want to point out that going to an Arab land doesn't necessarily mean somebody will be able to practice deen better than this place. Yeah, I need to point that out too. But the environment is just different. Here you get. So I think the focus should be on going to an environment where you can practice your deen better. You have more control over stuff, what you are eating, what your children are eating, the kind of education your children are getting, the kind of things you're consuming. So, you have control over more stuff than this kind of place. Because just like I mentioned, you don't really have much control over stuff here. More stuff have control over you than you have control over more stuff. So I think that's a very big deal. Yeah.
Those are very good answers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly. If I pick like what you said very well, I just want to like pick some points. And one of them is that before, like if you have to go, if it's a necessity, I mean, I think we should all be at that state of mind that may Allah make us do okay wherever we are, that we don't necessarily think of having to go somewhere else before we can do better. Like if wherever you are, where you go up at, it's not bad to like travel to other places just to like see what other places look like, but to actually pack your load and say, I'm moving to somewhere else that I don't know anyone else. Like we should actually make the dua that it should not be our first option. It should not be something that we long for, like, you're living off a JAPA, like when I want JAPA, right? The way a lot of people do it. So that's like number one. Then the number two thing is whenever we want to go, we should, if we need to go, like we should make sure we check ourselves very well, right? Look out yourself. Like it's not just about the dunya, you have to think about your akhirah too. And the third thing is research about the place you are going. Don't just go anywhere, right? I think the last episode when I listened to it, the sheikh was saying that some things that you can get in like US, UK, like it depends on the courses. There are some courses that they might even be doing it better in like some Muslim-ish countries or Arab-ish countries or Arab Europe, maybe Turkey, maybe UAE, maybe. So like research, even if it's like Western countries, research exactly where you're going. You are going to Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the most Muslim populated area in US. Like that's like even better than a lot of other places. You want to research where you're going. So, and the fourth thing that you mentioned is you want to think about your family too. So whether you have family now, you're going to have family in the future, it all matters. Right? What do you want to consume? What do you want your kids to consume? Where do you want your family to grow up? Right? It's not just about you. You can actually be taken away anytime. Like what would be the end result for your family? So those are like really good answers. Exactly. I would leave the questions for now and let other people. take it off from
Maybe I
there.
should just add one thing to the last thing you said that the Sheikh mentioned in
Okay.
that last podcast. He mentioned that if you think you are the one that will go and change people, or you go and change people in that place that you are going, what if the place ends up changing you? That we don't know the future. I don't know if you remember that part of the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was listening to that part, when it was saying that, right, I was like, realistically, I don't really think anyone travel like the Sahaba would go like, okay, I want to go and spread Islam to like, I want to go to Europe to go and spread Islam. I don't really think anyone does that. But if people do that, very few. I mean, if you're going to go and spread Islam in Europe, you don't want to go alone because you'll be swallowed easily, right? You would.
True.
What would you even eat? Like, where would you sleep and all of those things? You end up finding where to eat and what to sleep and all of it. But I'm just saying, like, for example, like if few of you go, like in go, and that's what you want to go and achieve, and maybe you have enough money to like spend for sometimes, and but realistically, I don't think anyone leave their home and say, okay, I'm going to France. I want to go and make sure they start wearing hijab. It's not very realistic. But by living among them, like if you have a reason, that's another thing that we Muslims should strive to do. Like if I have a reason to go to France, maybe for like a week or a month, sometimes like ulama says this a lot. They say this a lot. It's not just preaching that you can use to like that you can use to spread Islam. At times, just your character, just the way you interact with people. If people look at you, you want them to see Islam. You want them to be curious, like, brother, like you are different and you are just different in the way that we like, right? Like, what do you do? What's this? What's that? You want to make people curious about your deen, right? By showing up good characters, being welcoming to people, being nice, doing sadaqat and all of those things. So it might not necessarily be like direct preaching, right? But just your attitude. You spend a week somewhere. You might just be on a plane with someone, right? And just the way you are like great to the person can make the person feel like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And maybe you see something in your hand, maybe Quran or something. What's that? And the person will be curious, and you don't know who would like be guided from that. It might not even be directly from you. It might just be that you will come across you might be like, that guy from the other day. Well, was it not the same thing? Then it became curious. And so we should always have it at the back of our mind. Like you might not necessarily travel like I'm going to France to spread Islam. But wherever you are going, you should know that you want to like leave traces of Islam everywhere you go. You want to like leave traces of Islam everywhere you go. You want people to see Islam in you and make them interested, even if it's just like you spend it an hour somewhere. Yeah.
Mashallah, that's really a great addition. And I think that's also why I mentioned adab when I was mentioning, those things that one should put in place, like Aqidah, Tawheed. I also mentioned adab as one of those things. I think that's one of the places where the adab is important. I think Rukoya wants to add something, right? Yeah, we are running out of time.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I've been like gaining so much knowledge from what you've been sharing.
Okay. I think one question I asked that we've not really answered, I don't think we really have much time to answer that, is the measure of success, right? Because all of these things still, I think they all still go back to that. If I'm traveling out of Nigeria to do something, there is maybe I have a yardstick for how I would measure my success, right? Or just generally, how does that impact this whole thing about traveling out of Nigeria? I don't know if that makes sense. So the reason why I'm asking that is I noticed a new trend amongst the younger ones that now you see like 10-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids saying that they want to make money. I'm like, what do you want to use money to do? I don't know if you guys have also noticed that. Like small kids now, they'll be shouting money. Oh, what do you want to even use money to do? You're just barely 10-year-old. You're supposed to be focusing on something else right now. I mean, focus on acquiring knowledge. But now it's now a thing. Even secondary school students now, you see many of them, they're all about money. So I think that's, for me, I feel that's a big problem. And I feel that's also maybe one of the things that is fueling this whole thing about living in Nigeria. Because you actually realize that some people might even be more comfortable in their own environment right now. Or all they want to think about right now is how they will leave Nigeria to kind of be getting dollar, so that they can be getting dollar and spending dollar. So I feel there's something wrong with that part. And then that was why I asked the question of measure of success. So it looks like a lot of people are measuring success by money. Yeah. So how does all of those things, or what do you think about all of those things I've said? Yeah. So people focusing on money, people measuring, or metric of success is money, maybe because of superstars showing off all their stuff and stuff like that. So I think that's one thing okay, Hassan. Okay, I'm confused. Is that Hassan? Okay, that's Hassan.
Yeah, it's Hassan. Yeah. So
Yes.
regards to the metric of success, I think it's one of those questions that I ask a lot on my status, like every time. Because when you see a lot of trends, you feel like many of them are distant from what actual success really means to a Muslim.
Yeah.
To a Muslim. So I think, yes, on a general level, on a very general level, from a very, very Islamic perspective, because I am Muslim, success is when you enter Jannah. Fuck off. That's it. Without actually suffering a lot. Without actually suffering at all, I would say. That is the king of success. But let's say, Shah enter Jannah. That's like success. However, the dunya, that is where we actually do the work that will get us to Jannah. So everything that we do in this place, like with the senses money, if we have, I think Rukoya also mentioned, if we have that thing, that mindset, like that it's the akhirah is always there and is a function of whatever we do in dunya. It's going to keep our head straight. Like there's nothing saying you should not be rich. That's actually the funny thing. Yeah, I'm always praying for, I want to be a trillionaire, zillionaire or something. I want it, yeah, because the more the money, the more I can use it to try to find more ways to enter Jannah, by trying to do a lot
But
of
that's
things.
nuance too, Sha. And the more you can
Very
also
nice. Yeah, we don't
get
want to
carried
start that
away,
discussion now, but you
the more
can't
you
get
can
it.
get carried away.
The point is that, like, whatever we do, in as much as we know that it will not take us far away, like it will not take us away, not even far away from the injunctions of Allah and the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with regards to what are the do's and don'ts of the deen. I think we're allowed to do them. And the thing is, the thing is very, very big and all encompassing. Like we literally just spoke about family, spoke about community. It's very deep. It's not just a solar. It's not just solar. It's not just zakat. It's not just sound. It's a lot of things. Don't break the ties of kinship. Thoughts about brothers. Assuming the best about your brothers. A lot of things like that. So they're caught. So whatever we do that takes us closer, that gets us closer to Allah, and also in the light of like entering Jannah, I think, yes, that is a precursor to the fact that, yes, we are going towards that successful thing, success in the actual sense of it. Now, because we are human beings, we cannot enumerate or itemize those things. So that's why we can just, on a very high level, just say, okay, success is when you actually enter Jannah. That is success. So even if you want to JAPA, no wahala, JAPA. Just try as much as possible. Don't neglect the ultimate success for the short-term
Enjoyment.
enjoyment of this junior. Because in
Yeah.
the end, it's just, they will ask, we all know the hadith that they will ask someone like, have you been in this? They say, no, I've not been here. I just passed and I just, that's how fast it actually is, like chap. So if we know all of those things, unfortunately we don't. A lot of us do, but we don't really live the knowledge.
Yeah.
So if we do,
Theory
then
and practical.
Exactly, we're able to make better decisions. So I believe there's really, really nothing that we are stopped from doing if everything goes in the line with what the Quran and the Sunnah. Again, we can be trillionaire. We do care. Just don't mess up your deen. Don't mess up your akida. Just do it in the right way, and go to France. Okay, just don't mess up your deen, and don't go somewhere that will mess up your deen too.
Yeah, I think that's encompassing. But you already answered one of the questions. I think you didn't say something about the part of small kids these days are even looking for money. What do they want to use money to do?
That one, it is like the answer is very, very straightforward. It's glaring. Our society, our culture, in Nigeria particularly, is a money-driven one. Trust me. You'll be very shocked about what amount of disrespect you can wade off with money. And kids, they see it. Kids, they see. We literally have the Mother of Yahoo Boys Association of Nigeria. Literally, that is like in the past 10, 20 years, that would be something shameful. Today, it is not. Basically, it points to the fact that if you have money, we will let some things go for you. Like you're a rich man. So I think kids are not stupid. They know. They know. And number two, the fact that we also place some people on pedestals unnecessarily.
Because they have money.
Because they have money, we place them there. And I'm not really pointing fingers. We know quite a number of those kind of people. So it's not impossible to assume that young kids want to also have that life. They want to be reckoned with. They want to be known for certain things. So saying they want money, it makes a lot of sense, really. Unfortunately, the problem is actually getting that money. How are they getting it? Yahoo, rituals, all of this. And that's actually what is spoiling our society. So in a very, very opinionated response, I would say, I think our cultures, most likely, these are
morals. I think you're trying to say morals. The moral standard has deteriorated.
It's not as standard as we would love, like something that is like Islam now. You have money, you don't have money. If you steal money, you don't care. You know what is going to happen. We don't care if you have 1 billion. If you actually stole it and they actually caught you, and there's no shark, like they caught you. Well, you know what will happen. But in Nigeria, if you have money, he's a billionaire. How can he steal money? Then we start talking. According to something. Yeah. So we know about all of those things. So those people, they see these things. The kids, they see these things. They know how their parents talk about it. They know all of those, and they want to be like it. And then we can go in the tangent of trying to emulate people that are not necessarily should be emulated, and a lot of things like that. But I think the time is already fast spent, so I'll just.
I think we should. I don't know if Rukoya wants to add anything to that or.
Do I really? I don't think so, except that yes, I've seen scenarios where even the elders in the society are the one telling the younger generation that, oh, you still want to be forming only. Do you think you'll be able to make it? Yes. So they even like even younger generations that want to like put effort into honesty, they make them feel like it's like a lost cause.
That's deep. That's really deep. I think Abdullah raised his hand, so I don't know if
all right, so what I wanted to add is like a bit of advice, right? I'm not probably in that position to give advice, but like just something to say. And to start with, what Hassan said, there's like actually an ayah that butters the point. And if you guys remember, we actually discussed the Arab money halal vibe. Do you remember? True. So it actually has a lot to say with this. So if anybody goes to listen to that podcast, we say a lot there. And one of those things that we said is, one of those things that we said there is وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ, right? وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. So, and what happened was with Qarun. Qarun was like super rich. Like Allah gave him a lot of wealth, but he become like very proud. So when Allah gave him the wealth, a lot of people were envying him, just like people envy others today. So a lot of people were envying him. They want to have like stuff like him. They would say, they want to have stuff like him. They would, sorry, 1 second. They would, so they want to have, sorry, yeah, they want to have stuff like him. Like in that, I'll see tomorrow. Like look at Corwood, he has a lot of work. They want to be like him. But eventually, when Corwood felt proud, started doing stuff against against the commandment of Allah. And eventually Allah decided that the land should swallow him. Then eventually they were getting like, oh my God, had it been that we were like him, we would have been swallowed, just like him. So, and if you look at that, the story of someone that is like really rich, right, but offensive. But look at the story of Sulaiman. Sulaiman too was like very rich. But at the same time, it was a prophet of Allah. It was very responsible, and it would be one of those in paradise, right? Great. So, and you would also see the story of people that were like very poor, and they were still offensive, right? And they were still like very adamant against the commandment of Allah. And you see story of people that were like very poor, but they were like, Abu Hurairah, for instance. At the earliest time, Abu Hurairah would say that he would become so hungry
Hmm.
that he would sleep inside masjid, and people would think he has warapa. I don't know the English of that, and they'll be
Yeah, epilepsy.
stepping over him because of the amount of hunger, epilepsy. Yeah, because of the amount of hunger and how, how poor he was, right? But that didn't stop him from getting close to Allah. So at the end of the day, the argument is not between should we be rich or should we not be rich. The argument is that what is the true success? And in the Quran, Allah says, whoever is saved from fire and admitted into paradise, that's the person that has actually succeeded. Right? So it's actually being saved from hellfire and being admitted into paradise. So whatever we do, like in this dunya, towards that is like a step closer to that. Right? So whether we are rich here, we are not rich here. So how it goes down to innamal a'malu binniyat. If you are striving for wealth, why are you striving for wealth? What do you want to use it to do? If your means of striving for wealth is even wrong, like everything is wrong already, that's your foundation. Like if you have the wealth, then you did not use it well. At least you had the wealth from halal. But if your wealth was actually from haram, what else do you want to use it to do? Do you get? So if the means is wrong, the foundation is wrong, right? And ulama would say the end does not justify the means. That's what the English people will say if I'm not wrong. So just to go to Hajj, that's like totally wrong. Right. So that's talking about the kids of nowadays that you say, which we are part of them. Right. So we are like the kids of nowadays. Right. So and Hassan,
I think we are from a different generation.
Well, I mean, yeah, you could say that. But it affects people in our generation too, isn't it?
True.
People in our generation are mostly affected too. The Gen Z, even the millennials, they are mostly affected too. Right. And Hassan said something about peer pressure, which is the greatest thing. Everybody is thinking, is that money? Is that car?
Yeah.
People will literally buy one car and the next day already feeling sad that there is a friend of them that has like a better car and they want that. Right? There is that constant jealousy. And the Prophet said there is nothing that would fill the belly of man except the dust of grave. So you would constantly be chasing after it and chasing after it. So if you don't like redirect that to chasing after akhirah, you want to have money. Sheikh Hamid, may Allah like bless him for us. He would say, I need money more than central bank. Like we pray, oh Allah, I need money more. Like give me a lot of money. But he would also say that when you give me the money, finish, let it be in my hand if I'm correct. Don't let it be in my heart.
In my hands.
And when money is in your hand, is that you just keep spending it for Allah's sake. Right? You spend here, you spend there. Even the Prophet said there are no people that deserves to like, generally we should not like be jealous of people. But there are only 3 exceptions. And one of those is someone that has a lot of wealth and spend it here and there to help people, to assist people in the path of Allah. So at the end of the day, Muslims, intention and striving and everything is not just to achieve wealth, right? Some people want to have just enough for them. Some people want to have a lot, like me, right? So whichever category you fall, the end result should be like, what do you want to use it for? Do you want to use it to get closer to Allah? Yeah, that's the greater goal. Do you want to use it to how much money do you want to have now? If you want to go to Hajj with your whole family, like you might just think like you are rich. Right. But if you want to convert that and take your whole family to Hajj, that's like one of those ways that you just realize that you're not actually rich. You're probably just better if you are spending it the right way. So I think this is long enough. So at the end of the day, like, my point is, like, we should stop competing about which car do you have, which house do you have, what's the color of your Bugatti. So it's not all of those things. Like those are like just delusions of dunya. And the last is what the life after is better. That's number 1. Because even just the 2 rakah that you observe before Fajr, it's better than the whole world. And everything is like, just like Fajr. Just start 2 rakah. So now imagine the reward of the akhirah. And it's not just that it's going to end like that of dunya. After a while, 60, 70 years, we all live, no matter what you have. But akhirah is abba, like is abadan. It's just like once you have it forever. So a wise person would strive in this dunya for what he's going to meet after, and not like strive for this dunya just for him to lose what is going to remain forever. So we should channel all our, I want to have a lot of money, I want to have just little for my family, whichever category you fall, your greater goal should be, I want to use it to get closer to Allah. So whether you end up having it or you don't, because no matter how much you strive, some people will just not have it. That's like what Allah has said. We are not the ones sharing it. So whether you end up having it a lot or just small, or whichever category you end up falling, it will not affect you at the end of the day, because your greater goal was to use it to please Allah. So whether you have it, you don't have it, you still retain that goal of pleasing Allah. So whether you were supposed to have 1 million and spend 500,000 each for sadaqah, then you end up having 100 naira, you still be able to spend 10 naira, right? Because it's not the amount of money that matters, it's that goal that you want to get closer to Allah. So I hope that that's like an advice for me first, because it's easy to say, the practicality is what's a big deal. May Allah make it easy for me and for everyone.
That's really that's a perfect way to that's a perfect way to conclude the episode. Yeah, I just want to bring back something that Hassan said in front. He said that what most people are doing is JAPA first, think later. So maybe we can, remaster that sentence and maybe say, master your intention first and JAPA later, or something like that. I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, anyways, this has been a very great episode. Yeah, may Allah make it easy for us to practice all of these great things that we've said. Because just like Abdullah said, theory is not like practical. Sincerely, anybody can say anything, but when it actually comes to doing whatever you said, it's another ball game entirely. May Allah really make it easy for us to be able to practice those good things that we say, because there are some things that we say that may not be good. There's this dua that I usually make these days. I try to make that dua every day. It says, the dua is Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuna ila hubbik. I don't really know how to translate that. Maybe Rukoya wants to help with the translation.
If I remember correctly, it should be, oh Allah, I ask for your love. I ask for the love of those who love you, and I ask for the love of deeds that will bring me closer to you.
Yeah, that's it. So I usually make that dua a lot, every day. I try to do it every day. So I think that's really important. And whenever I do it, so once in a while, I try to think about it and try to really understand what I'm saying, which is very important. So I think that's also or something that we can add to the concluding statements that Abdullah already gave, which was fantastic. So we can call it a podcast. You want to add something?
If I could add something, people should not forget the role of istikhara.
No, sure.
When you want to, I don't know if it was mentioned in the first episode, but it's a very powerful way to get the best out of your decision on if you should travel to a particular place or not.
No, true. Yeah, that's also very true. I think we didn't mention that's enough. So that's something that everyone listening to this should also take note of. So you can learn about istikhara from maybe your ustad. I hope you have an ustad, not an ustad calling himself an ustad. Anyways, I hope you have an ustad. So you can reach out to your ustad and ask them about Salatul Istikhara, and then or the dua of Istikhara, and try to understand how to make the dua. And because I also realize that there are a lot of misunderstandings about the Istikhara. Some people say you'll be dreaming up and down, a lot of different things around it. So I think one should really try to seek clarification and not just follow whatever you've heard before, you've read before randomly somewhere. I think it's important to verify those things from someone that has knowledge of the deen. So that's a very great addition. I think does anybody want to add anything again, or should we just call it a day at this point? Okay, nothing to add. All right. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me stop the recording.
بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن بإسلامي وإيماني أضاء الكون وزمن